Yeah, I will do. And guys, I'll just ask you to unmute if you've got a question. Just, Corne, I have one. And the reason why I'm going to ask this is because one of the ambitions we have for the Platinum Plus Club is this idea of called growth after sport, and working with Lawrence's son, Tane, and understanding his migration out of sport into business. I'd love to know what skills you felt as a captain of the South African rugby team, and also as a very successful sports person. How did you find that transition to business, and what skills did you feel you could bring into business that helped you on your journey?
Ian, I can no doubt say that my transition from professional sport to business is the most difficult thing that I've ever done. And to be honest, I'm still in that transition. I still sometimes doubt myself. It's like being a physio the one day and then going to be like a mechanic the next day. It is, you think you got your trade, you know how to play rugby, you've got the skill to do rugby, but not everybody's got the skill to go into business, and by far the most difficult thing I've ever done. And I'm just grateful that I've managed to get through it mentally. One, because emotionally, it's a much more draining exercise than people think, because especially in South Africa, I think the one day you a hero, and the next day you're zero, and your income goes from massive to nothing, in literally within a week, in a month, So I think the one skill that I took out of rugby was building teams, motivating people. So I've always focused on building a team of people around me, and that saved me. The one thing I can do is I can do a bit of marketing, but I need a very strong accountant, very, very close to me, not outside my office, inside my office. So accounting and all the skills that I lack in, and it's one of the traits of a good leader, is actually knowing your shortcomings and knowing and understanding that you have to employ people and you have to allow them to do their job in the areas where you're weak. So that's probably the one skill that I managed to bring across is about building teams and motivating people.
Brilliant. Great answer. Thank you, Corne. Guys, can I open up the floor? Unmute yourselves and please feel free. Corne, I think most things are on the table for questioning, Corne, so I'll let somebody else ask that.
Corne, can I ask a question? Thank you very much for what you said there. It's very, very interesting. My name's John McGowan from Ireland. Very, very specific question. Who in your career would have been the hardest player, and not the best, the hardest player you ever come up against?
Yeah,
that's an unfair question.
It's not. The thing is, when you ask a person from Ireland or from Scotland or from Wales, they'll always talk about somebody in South Africa or New Zealand or Australia. But we had some really hard nuts here in South Africa who we played against on a weekly basis. So those guys were incredibly tough. I think about Ruben Kruger, Audrey Geldenhuys, Elandre van der Berg, guys who came from the Eastern Cape who were seriously mean people in the days before slow-mo videos were played of you afterwards, and you get taken off the field. Those guys wouldn't have played a long rugby.
Yeah.
But position-wise, Richie McCaw, I played against Richie McCaw many times at flanker. He was very, very good and very skillful, but hard. He never went away. I think measuring hard is very difficult, but I always said that if he doesn't go away, if you push him and push him and push him, you take him to the limits, he just doesn't go away. He's there for 80 minutes, and if it's 90 minutes, the game is 90 minutes, he'll be there for 90. So, and then obviously Martin Johnson was in the England team, was one of those guys, a really tough guy who just never went away. No matter what you gave him, you can take him down to the trenches if you wanted, but he was always there. So I think those two guys position-wise, and then obviously, but as I said, in South Africa, we had some really crazy guys who were just very, very hard.
So Corne, just Razzie made a comment about the Irish being a little bit soft. Just to follow on from John's piece, did you find that true, or do we have some mitigating circumstance?
No, Rassie's wrong. I think he said that in the heat of the moment. But I remember playing against Peter Claesi. I don't know if you remember him.
The claw, yeah.
Well, he was. I still have damage to my fingers from one of the punches he gave me. I tried to stop it, and he broke my finger against my own skull. So Peter was a very tough guy. There were some really tough guys. The hooker Wood.
Keith Wood, yeah.
Keith Wood. Jeez, what a tough guy. And they don't get much tougher than that, really. So I think as individuals they were tough, but I think often it was felt that you need about 5 of those tough nuts in the team to make the team tough to play against, and I think that's where possibly the Russie's comments came from. But no ways. I never had an easy game against Ireland, that's for sure.
Very good. Anybody else like to ask a question?
Yeah. Hi, Corne. My name's Darren. Ironically, actually, I was introduced to Lawrence via John McGowan, who actually asked the first question there. He was my first senior rugby captain whenever I left school. So I think rugby is probably the best sport in the world in terms of, building a business network with people close to you after you finish playing, from the point of view that I think rugby embodies the ethos of being respectful and just working well as a team, and I think actually just you're asking there about Ian's question about the Irish being soft. There was a quote from Paul O'Connell that he said, great players just do everything well that requires no talent. Just do the basics exceptionally well, and the difficult stuff takes care of itself. When would have been probably your biggest challenge in terms of when things weren't going your way, obviously maybe in business or in a match, and what was your go-to in terms of turning things around and moving the needle back in your favor?
I think if I look back even at my playing days, when things didn't go well in the beginning, I always tried to focus on the controllables. I always said to the guys within our team, don't focus on the other team now. They're playing incredibly well. I remember a specific game we played in Australia in Super Rugby. After 14 minutes, we were 21 points down. They'd scored 3 incredible tries. Nothing that we did wrong, but they did really well. So I said to the guys, look, there's nothing we can do about how they play. We can up our defense. We can be better in defense, and we must get our hands on the ball. And we ended up winning that game, I think 48-22 or 25 or something. It was really a game where we came back and did really well. But it's I think when things go wrong, people start focusing on things that are outside of their control. But it's incredibly important to focus on the controllables and make sure that if you're in a tough financial situation. I was actually talking to my brother who's not in a good space at the moment, and I went to him and I said, some of the stuff that happened to you is out of your control, but the one thing I want to tell you is that your health is under your control. Just look after your health. Make sure that you start exercising, that you look after yourself, that you in the best possible position to get out of this hole that you're in, because if your health and your finances and everything starts deteriorating, it's a downward spiral, so focus on the stuff that you can control and make sure that you do them incredibly well.
Brilliant. Thank you.
And Corne, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Steve Sapato here. You used the term hero to zero. What training do you recommend for players nearing the end of their career so they could make a better transition?
It's a very valid question and a very difficult one to answer as well, because I don't think you can ever mentally prepare somebody that what they're having now is not going to be there forever, and then when it goes, handling that psychologically is incredibly difficult. So one of the things that I did pre, my retirement out of rugby and moving into a different direction was I continuously held contact with my school friends, my university friends. I made sure that I knew that the position I was in was a temporary position because like a coach and a captain and any player, you're only as good as your last game, so you can get fired any day. So I realized that position was temporary. So I continued to have a life outside of rugby, where some sportsmen really commit to the sport so badly that that's their whole life. And once rugby falls away or athletics falls away or whatever it is, whatever the sport is, professional sport is, when that falls away, they also fall away. So I think, being realistic about how long your career can be and always knowing that it's a temporary position and a massive honor and a privilege, but only temporary.
Good. Thank you very much. I do have another question for follow-up on that. Did someone guide you? Did someone ask you about your plans that kept you aware, or was it just your own self-awareness that kept you aware that those things were temporary? Who kept you in reality, I guess is what I'm asking.
Yeah, that's very valid. I had mentors in my life, and I was very fortunate that I had one or two people that I could go to. I could cry on their shoulder. I could share my distress with them. I could share my wins with them. I could share, because you can't always share this stuff with your wife or your kids. You can, and having a mentor, having somebody from outside who stands outside of your inner circle, who looks in, it's great to have that. And I was very fortunate to have that, and I'm very incredibly grateful for that today.
Great. And one final question. What do you think will be your greatest challenge as you move forward from here?
I'm 46, turning 47 in probably in about a month. I'm turning 47, and I think going forward, as many people do, they go sort of into a midlife crisis. So I've come over the first bit of the transition of my life, and now it's going into being a good husband, being a good father. I've got teenage kids, so my youngest is 13, 15, and 17, and being a good father to them and not taking out my work frustrations from them. That's good. I think going forward is probably going to be my biggest challenge, as kids are a challenge, but also a massive blessing. So I actually look forward to the challenge as well.
Yeah, it's funny enough, Harley Davidson identified that the average age of the first buyer of a Harley is 47, Corne. So if we see you in a Harley Davidson, we know you've hit the midlife crisis.
I definitely hit it, yeah.
Well, look, we've hit 1:45, and we did say we'd keep this within a 40-minute radar. Corne, I'm going to thank you very much for coming on, and we appreciate when Lawrence reached out to see if you'd come and do a talk. For us, it's all about Kickstarting 2022. And I think you've got some great words of inspiration there to help us achieve that. I know on behalf of the audience, I'd like to thank you on behalf of Platinum Plus Club and our members. Thank you for coming on, and we'll certainly look to invite you on during the year, and we look forward to following your career with great enthusiasm.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate the kind words, and I hope I can see you guys in the UK at some point. Yeah.
Sounds really good. Well, we'll be running a number of face-to-face meetings in the UK. I know that as I mentioned, we do want to look at this growth after sport for sports people. And I think, Corne, we'd certainly look to reach out and have you be an ambassador of that with us, because you've given some great inspirational words there today. So thank you very much.
We'll stay in touch. Thanks, Lawrence. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. Have a good day. Take care. Thank you.
Bye.